this is looking. Let me just, hopefully that works. Okay, so the review for today is Power of the Dog. I think I'm going to be doing 2 reviews, so you'll see me in the same shirt. It's Power of the Dog, and then I'll probably do Belfast afterwards, just because those are 2 big players for awards, and so I feel like if anybody's watching these, they're going to want to hear about those, and maybe not my opinion, but it's what you're going to get. Ooh, excuse me. So, The Power of the Dog. A brief synopsis is charismatic rancher Phil Burbank inspires fear and awe in those around him. When his brother brings home a new wife and her son, Phil torments them until he finds himself exposed to the possibility of love. Right into the movie review. Well, I'll tell you, it's Benedict Cumberbatch plays Burbank. Jesse Plemons plays his brother. The wife is Kirsten Dunst, and her son, I'm so sorry, I had the actor's name, but I forgot it now. I look so uneducated in these videos. I should probably put more time into them. So the basic plot, I think, was cool enough. I think they try to make it a little over the top complicated for what it is. I think it didn't need for it to be as... I mean, maybe this is just me, but I found myself not super confused, but at some point it was like, especially with the relationship between Phil Burbank and Kirsten Dunst's character, I was kind of, I was curious as to what the relationship was, where it seemed at points almost like he was trying to flirt with her, and it didn't really read for me as torture. And then so when she starts drinking and becomes alcoholic, I wasn't super clear that it was because of him and not because she was just unhappy and alcoholic. I don't think those things were clear. I think they were really broad for what it was, the story was trying to tell. I didn't think they needed to I don't think it was the kind of thing they should have left up to us so much, because then at the end it was like I was supposed to know all this stuff, and I was like, never was this given to me. And not that I love having things kind of handed to me, but it's one of those things I was like, it's not the kind of story that you should be having people guessing what's going on. And I kind of found myself doing that for a large part of the movie. Directing good. I like the directing. I know that Jane Campion's getting a lot of praise for this, and it's kind of between her and Branagh for best director at this point, I think they're saying, which I don't agree with either of those, but we'll get into that, I guess. I think it was good. Don't think it was great. I think it's possibly some of her best work, but I'm not super blown away with Jane Campion as it is. Cinematography is great. I loved it. That I'll give it. I think it's the Nomadland of this year with the cinematography, of using these very plain, real things and not needing the movie to be a spectacle for the cinematography to kind of be a spectacle, which I'm starting to really learn that I enjoy. I can almost like a movie. I can go from like kind of being about a movie to really liking it just off of how well they do with the cinematography, and so I think it was really good. I kind of went into it. The plot itself is kind of just, it seemed kind of tired, even though it's not something that's like overdone. It may not have been done specifically like this before, but just the simplicities of it and everything that's going on, it seems very predictable. And so I kind of found myself growing tired of the things that I knew. And like I said, there's things that I feel like I should have known that would have made it interesting, that I found myself needing to guess as to what was going on. And it wasn't in a way that like heightened my experience at all. So it kind of hurt it for me. But again, I kind of walked out of it going, maybe I'm just too dumb for this movie. I was like, maybe this is built for somebody with a little more of a film brain for me. I mean, not to sell myself short at all. Like, I've watched enough to give myself credit to say I usually catch things, but this one specifically, I was like, this just isn't really in my wheelhouse, maybe. I was like, I don't want to say it's a bad movie, but it's just not my kind of movie. Performance bases, Cumberbatch, I know that he's getting a lot of praise for it, but I personally, not a huge fan of Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think this movie really kind of encapsulated why. For this one specifically, I think he's a bit too theatrical. I know he's a theatrical-based actor. He's from London. He's done a lot of West End stuff, and he's done a lot of Shakespeare, and so it shows in his work, and some actors can really find that balance. Kenneth Branagh is somebody who's the epitome of that. He's made a career out of bringing that kind of thing to film, but I think it's just he's too theatrical. I think he's almost too base, and he brings too much of that to film, where it's almost a little, I don't know what it is. It's not like he's like using his body too much, because obviously film's a lot about like the smaller things. He does that, but there's almost something about it that I was like, I'd love this if it were on stage. Um, but I don't love it in film. I think because in film, I think you are supposed to, in theater, you should be the character, obviously, but there's some suspension of disbelief of us knowing you're playing the character because you're right in front of us. We know you're you. We know you're playing. In film, it's almost like we could be seeing the same way we watch a documentary of the real person. So some part of us wants to really believe you are that person, and so that's why those small intricacies are like so important because we don't want you to be forcing, we don't want you to be pushing at any point. We want you to just kind of fall into that, and just be that person. That's from the beginning. That's the one thing you need, or else nobody's gonna buy it. And with Cumberbatch, with everything, and this is kind of just specifically, he plays the over the top rancher. It's so textbook, and it's so kind of he does everything to a T, but he plays in a way that I was like, if this movie, which I guess this movie honestly could be a play, it'd be a boring one, but it'd be a classic by all means. He plays in a way that I was like, if this were on, excuse me, if this were on stage, I'd probably be like, that was great. It was very showy in all the best ways. But in this one, I was like, it was too showy for what we were seeing. It was like he was trying to, again, hand deliver certain things when other things were very broad and like not specific enough. And I wasn't a huge fan of his performance. I think there were moments where I loved it, but then it was inconsistent with moments that I was like, I didn't need all that. I'm not buying it. I think even the fact that the way he plays the bully is very like, that was the moment where I was like, if this were on stage, I'd need it to be that clear that, oh, he's bullying her. We need this for the story. But in this, he didn't need to do as much as he was doing. He didn't need to be as blatant with it. And he was. And it didn't seem like it was just a sign of the times or whatever. It just seemed more like a in your face kind of showiness. And I didn't love it. Jesse Plemons, I love him. He's in a lot of stuff, but I feel this for almost everything he's in is they're giving him the most plain roles. And I'm like, this guy's so interesting looking. And like where he started, which is Breaking Bad, it's like he had one of the most interesting kind of out of nowhere characters, and that's gotten him a career. And then they give him these very plain roles, and it's like the man doesn't look normal. Stop making him normal. I know he's got the upcoming Apple TV thing with DiCaprio and Scorsese, and it's like I've been hearing things about how he's like DiCaprio gave him the lead or whatever. I don't know what's true or what's not, but now I'm kind of expecting. I'm like, oh man, that sucks for the movie because he's gonna be a super boring guy, and that's gonna be the lead of the movie. And so I don't know. I just think Plemons is such a great actor, and he should be getting more interesting roles. And this was kind of in that same thing of what he's been getting in things like this, Judas and the Black Messiah, which was a little bit better. His performance, he was given a little bit more in that. And other things, just I'm not going to name everything, but he's given these very kind of roles. Forgettable. Kirsten Dunst and the actor who plays the son are also to me. That's what I have written is that they're I know they're both getting a lot of critical acclaim. People are like, oh, Dunst is going to get that Oscar she deserves. I think she's one of the weirdly overrated actresses. I just don't buy what she sells either. I'm not really sure what her brand is. Not that you need one, but I guess in Hollywood you do need one to sell yourself, but for me, you don't usually, but for her, I feel like she needs one, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not a fan of what she does. I don't watch a lot of what she does because she doesn't really draw me in. And I was expecting a lot coming into this, and I don't know. I guess she kind of just played one note for me the whole time. It was very like she was always on shaky ground, just with her mental state, and I was like, all right, I've seen this, and it's growing, and you kind of knew where she was going to end at the beginning because she just kind of seemed she was weak. She was very meek, and I don't know. And the son, I think he's good, but it's very understated and not in a way where it's like, wow, like he's so skilled. He didn't have to do much to do a lot. It was just more like he didn't do much. I think his character is interesting looking just because he's interesting and he didn't have to do much acting. He just kind of played the one character he can play. I don't think this kid's going to do, I say kid, he's probably like my age or older. I don't think this guy's going to do much else beyond this because I think he's got a very specific character that they're going to need to build a character for. And I guess if that alone merits and character good enough or interesting enough where it's like, well, it's the one thing he'll ever do good, let's give him an award for it, then fine. I don't really buy into that. I think he was blending into the story, but again, that's also because everything blended together and I wasn't really completely in it by the time that I think his character got to do the interesting things. I think his significance in the story is obviously great. I think he's, as far as what's going on where the story starts and ends, he's kind of the like pinnacle and the focus of it without you knowing it. Which on paper his part on paper sounds much more interesting than it actually is, but I think that's kind of the case for the whole movie, is that on paper this sounds great, and when you look back at this after it probably wins a bunch of Oscars, or at least gets nominated, you're going to look at it, read the description, and go, wow, I get it. But watching it, you don't receive what you think you're going to when you read it on paper. I think that kind of encapsulates my experience with it. And to wrap it up, that's kind of my final opinion. My favorite part had to far and away be the cinematography. I think it was great. I think it should win for that. Unless, I mean, there's other things I have written down for other films, and I'm like, maybe I'll go back on that. But right now, I think that that's definitely up there, if not the best, one of the best for this year, for sure. My grade for it was a 3.5 stars. I know for a lot of people, they're going to be like, what the heck? But it missed me. I love it. And that's kind of it. 3.5, don't have much else to say. I think the performances were okay at best. And it's a movie that I won't soon remember past this season, in a season that was, I think, generally somewhat forgettable. Not as strong as it could have been, we'll say that. A season of a lot of letdowns for me, I'll say that. Who am I to say that, though? Who cares? All right, you know what? Power of the Dog, 3.5 stars out of 5 on my Letterboxd. Yes, if you want to see it, it is on Netflix for free. Because it's free, go for it, watch it. Maybe just, if you're anybody that cares, one of the very few people watching these videos at this point, go watch it. Feel free to leave a comment or let me know through any other form of social media that you disagree or agree with me, or that you think I'm stupid for having these opinions that are strongly against the hype of this movie. But I get that it's a critically acclaimed movie. Not my kind of thing. Power of the Dog, 3.5 stars out of 5. I'll see you on the next review in the same exact outfit on the same exact night for Belfast. Peace.